Hey there, English learners. Welcome back to M&M English Academy. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Rachel. Thanks for tuning in today, everyone. Matthew and I were just talking before we started recording, and we realized something pretty crazy.
Oh yeah? What's that?
Well, I checked my screen time this morning, and I spent over 5 hours on my phone yesterday. 5 hours! That's like a part-time job.
No way. 5 hours? That's wild. But you know what? I'm probably not much better. I caught myself checking Instagram while I was brushing my teeth this morning. Like, seriously, what important updates could have happened in the 8 hours I was sleeping?
Right? And that got us thinking, this would be perfect for today's episode. So we're diving into a topic that affects pretty much everyone listening right now. Why are we so addicted to our phones?
Exactly. And as always, we'll help you expand your vocabulary while exploring this super relevant topic.
Before we jump in, Matthew, I've got a question for our listeners. How many times do you think the average person checks their phone per day? Is it A, 50 times, B, 96 times, or C, 144 times?
Wow, those are some pretty high numbers. I'm going to go with 96 times. That sounds about right for most people I know.
All right, I'll reveal the answer later in the show. But first, let's talk about what phone addiction actually looks like in our daily lives.
You know, Rachel, when we say addiction, some people might think that's a strong word. But let's be honest. How many of us have experienced that panic when our phone battery dies? Or that phantom vibration thing where you think your phone buzzed, but it didn't?
Oh my gosh, yes, the phantom vibrations. I get those all the time. It's like my brain is so used to expecting notifications that it creates them even when they're not there. That's actually a real psychological phenomenon called phantom vibration syndrome.
Phantom vibration syndrome. That's our first key term today, folks. It's when you think you feel your phone vibrating, but it's actually not. This happens because our brains become hyper alert to any sensation that might be our phone trying to get our attention.
And speaking of getting our attention, let's think about this. When was the last time you sat through an entire meal without checking your phone? Or watched a movie without scrolling through social media during the boring parts?
I'm calling me out here, Rachel. I'm totally guilty of that. Just last week, I was watching this amazing documentary, and I found myself reaching for my phone during what I thought was a slow scene. But then I missed this incredible moment in the film.
See, that's exactly what we're talking about. Our phones have rewired our brains to crave constant stimulation. We become uncomfortable with moments of quiet or stillness.
That's such a good point. Let's break down some of the science behind this. Dr. Anna Lembke, who's a psychiatrist at Stanford University, explains that our smartphones trigger the release of dopamine in our brains.
Right. Dopamine is often called the feel-good chemical, but it's actually more about anticipation and seeking. Every time we get a notification, whether it's a text, a like on social media, or even just seeing that little red badge with a number, our brain gets a tiny hit of dopamine.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The unpredictability of these notifications makes them even more addictive. It's like a slot machine in your pocket. You never know when you'll get that next reward, so you keep checking.
Exactly. This unpredictable reward system is called intermittent reinforcement, and it's one of the most powerful tools for creating habits, both good ones and bad ones.
Now, let's think about the social aspect of phone addiction. How many times have you been hanging out with friends and everyone's just staring at their phones?
Oh, I hate that. It's like everyone's physically present, but mentally somewhere else. There's actually a term for this, continuous partial attention. We're always half focused on what's happening around us and half focused on our digital world.
Continuous partial attention. That's another key phrase for today's vocabulary. It describes our modern tendency to never give our full attention to just one thing. We're always multitasking, always ready to be distracted by the next notification.
And you know what's really concerning? This constant state of partial attention is affecting our ability to form deep, meaningful connections with people. When we're always half distracted by our phones, we miss out on those genuine moments of human connection.
That's so true. I remember reading about this concept called continuous partial attention. Wait, did you already mention that?
Yes, you just repeated me. But that's actually perfect because it proves our point. We're so used to information overload that we sometimes miss what was just said. It's like our brains are constantly trying to process multiple streams of information.
Wow, I just demonstrated the problem we're talking about. That's embarrassing, but also kind of perfect for our discussion.
Don't worry about it. It happens to all of us. Now, let's talk about some of the specific design features that make phones so addictive. Tech companies have literally hired teams of psychologists and neuroscientists to make their apps as engaging as possible.
Yeah, it's called persuasive design or sometimes addictive design. These companies use what's known as behavioral psychology to keep us scrolling, clicking, and coming back for more.
For example, have you ever noticed how social media apps use infinite scrolling? There's no natural stopping point. You just keep scrolling, and there's always more content waiting for you.
And those red notification badges, they're designed to create what psychologists call completion anxiety. That little red number bothers us until we make it go away by checking the app. It's like having an itch you have to scratch.
Speaking of social media, let's talk about FOMO, fear of missing out. This is huge when it comes to phone addiction. We're constantly worried that something important or exciting is happening online, and we might miss it if we're not constantly connected.
FOMO is such a real thing. I've felt it myself. Like, what if someone posted something amazing on Instagram while I was sleeping? What if there's some important news happening right now that I don't know about?
But here's the thing. Most of what we're afraid of missing out on isn't actually that important. It's just our brains tricking us into thinking everything is urgent and crucial.
Absolutely. And this constant state of urgency is actually creating something called continuous crisis mode in our nervous systems. We're always slightly stressed, always slightly on edge, waiting for the next notification.
Which brings us to the physical effects of phone addiction. How many of you listening right now have experienced text neck? That's the neck and shoulder pain you get from constantly looking down at your phone.
Oh man, text neck is real. I've definitely felt that. And what about tech thumb? That's the repetitive strain injury you can get from constantly swiping and typing on your phone.
These physical symptoms show us that phone addiction isn't just psychological. It's affecting our bodies too. Some people even experience withdrawal symptoms when they can't access their phones, like anxiety, irritability, or difficulty concentrating.
Now, I don't want our listeners to feel bad about their phone use. We're not here to shame anyone. The truth is, smartphones have become essential tools in modern life. They help us stay connected with loved ones, navigate the world, access information, and so much more.
Exactly. The goal isn't to completely eliminate phones from our lives. That would be pretty unrealistic in 2025. Instead, it's about developing a healthier relationship with our devices. It's about being more intentional and mindful about how and when we use them.
So let's talk about some practical strategies for managing phone addiction. One technique that's gained popularity is called phone fasting, or taking regular breaks from your device.
Yeah, some people do phone-free Sundays or put their phones in another room during meals. The key is creating intentional spaces in your life where you're fully present and not distracted by your device.
Now, another strategy is to customize your phone's settings to reduce its addictive pull. You can turn off non-essential notifications, put your phone in Do Not Disturb mode during certain hours, or even switch to grayscale mode to make your screen less visually appealing.
Ooh, the grayscale thing is interesting. The idea is that the bright, colorful interface of most apps is designed to grab our attention. When everything is in shades of gray, it's less stimulating and therefore less addictive.
There's also something called mindful phone use. This means paying attention to why you're picking up your phone. Are you bored? Anxious? Looking for a specific piece of information? Or are you just picking it up out of habit?
That's such a good point. A lot of our phone use is completely unconscious. We reach for our phones without even thinking about it. Mindful phone use is about bringing awareness to these automatic behaviors.
Some people find it helpful to keep their phones in a different room while they sleep, or to use a regular alarm clock instead of their phone alarm. This prevents that immediate urge to check social media first thing in the morning.
And speaking of morning routines, creating a phone-free morning routine can be incredibly beneficial. Instead of starting your day by consuming other people's content online, you can focus on your own thoughts, feelings, and priorities.
You know, Rachel, all of this talk about phone addiction makes me think about the bigger picture. Why do you think we've become so dependent on these devices?
That's such a deep question. I think part of it is that phones fill a very human need for connection and stimulation. In a world where many people feel isolated or bored, phones offer instant entertainment and social connection.
But sometimes that connection is kind of superficial, right? Like you can have hundreds of friends on social media, but still feel lonely. There's a difference between being connected and being truly connected.
Exactly. And I think phones also give us an illusion of productivity and importance. When we're constantly busy with our phones, responding to messages, checking updates, consuming content, it feels like we're doing something important, even when we're not.
That's so true. It's like we've confused being busy with being productive or being informed with being wise. Just because we can access infinite information doesn't mean we're actually learning or growing.
And let's be honest, sometimes we use our phones to avoid difficult emotions or situations. Feeling awkward in an elevator? Check your phone. Feeling sad or anxious? Distract yourself with social media. It becomes a way of numbing ourselves instead of dealing with what we're actually experiencing.
Wow, that's profound. Our phones can become a form of emotional avoidance. Instead of sitting with uncomfortable feelings or working through problems, we escape into our digital worlds.
But here's the thing. Those uncomfortable moments are often where growth happens. When we're bored, that's when we might come up with creative ideas. When we're lonely, that's when we might reach out to make genuine connections. When we're anxious, that's when we might develop coping strategies.
So by constantly avoiding these moments with our phones, we might be preventing ourselves from developing important life skills and emotional resilience.
Exactly. And that brings us back to our earlier question about checking our phones. Matthew, you guessed 96 times per day. The actual answer is C, 144 times per day. The average person checks their phone 144 times per day. That's once every 6.5 minutes during waking hours.
Whoa, 144 times. That's even higher than I thought. That means we're interrupting whatever we're doing every few minutes to look at our phones. No wonder it's hard to focus on anything for extended periods of time.
Right? And here's another crazy statistic. The average person spends about 7 hours a day looking at screens. That's nearly half of our waking hours.
7 hours. That's like a full-time job, just like you said at the beginning of the show. Imagine if we spent that same amount of time learning new skills, exercising, or spending quality time with loved ones.
Now, before we wrap up, Let's do a quick recap of the vocabulary we've learned today. We started with phantom vibration syndrome. That's when you think you feel your phone vibrating when it's not.
We also talked about intermittent reinforcement, the unpredictable reward system that makes phone notifications so addictive, like a slot machine in your pocket.
Then we discussed continuous partial attention, our tendency to never give our full focus to just one thing because we're always ready to be distracted by our phones.
We mentioned FOMO, or fear of missing out, that anxiety we feel about potentially missing something important online.
And we explored mindful phone use, the practice of being intentional and aware about when and why we use our devices.
We also touched on persuasive design, the psychological techniques that tech companies use to make their apps as addictive as possible.
So what's the takeaway from all of this? I think the main message is that it's okay to acknowledge that we might have an unhealthy relationship with our phones, and it's possible to change that relationship.
Absolutely. Small changes can make a big difference. Maybe start with one phone-free hour each day, or put your phone in airplane mode during meals. The goal is progress, not perfection.
And remember, you have more control than you think. You can choose when to respond to notifications, when to check social media, and when to put your phone away. You're in charge of your relationship with technology, not the other way around.
That's such an empowering way to think about it. We hope today's discussion has given you some food for thought and maybe some practical tools to try in your own life.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone.
And hey, here's a challenge for our listeners. Try to go the next hour after listening to this podcast without checking your phone unless it's absolutely necessary. See how it feels.
Great idea. And if you found today's episode helpful, we'd love it if you could share it with a friend who might benefit from this discussion. Sometimes the best way to change our habits is to have support from people around us.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and maybe keep your phone in your pocket just a little bit longer.
See you next Monday, English learners. This has been M&M English Academy. Take care.